But there's also those barriers that are more man-made, more made by us, essentially, that prevent us from getting somewhere. And those are the ones I want to focus on this morning, because the physical ones are a little bit different to address. They may be something that's so real that you can't get around it. But some of those barriers that we set, we can find ways to get around it. Beth says, living in the present is a good way to overcome deep-rooted barriers from past experiences. Beth, you must be reading my presentation in advance, because those are definitely some things that we talk about. So throughout my journey to whatever success meant to me, I found that there were three primary barriers. I'd like to present those barriers to you and talk a little bit about them. I'll also give you some examples as we go as to where those barriers apply. And I'd like for you, if something rings true to you, to share with us what that barrier meant to you as well. So let's talk about the three primary barriers. First one is the N''T barrier. A lot of individuals, not a lot, a number of individuals who have barriers use that N''T. And we're going to talk about what that means in a little bit. I'm sure some of you already have an idea. I think I see a smile on Judy Murphy's face. I think she knows what I'm talking about there. And there we go. Kevin has already read my presentation in advance. We're going to get through this morning easy. We're going to have a cup of coffee later. And Daryl's going to be able to go fishing later. We also have fear. And fears are good things to have. Fears are things to harness and use to our advantage. How many of you, when you're getting ready to get on stage, give a presentation, give a speech, still have those butterflies that get in there and really feel them? And you've been a Toastmaster for years now. I've been a Toastmaster for 16 years. I get on the stage, I still have those butterflies. There's nothing wrong with that. It's how we harness them. So we're going to look at some fears that I see for myself. Now, you may see others, but I just want to give you the ability to take a look at what some of these are, so that maybe you'll be able to help identify some of the ones that you have. And then thirdly, it's who we associate with. Have you ever heard the saying, if you want to be successful, surround yourself with successful people? It's a great saying, but you may not really like those people. So why would you surround yourself with them? But there's others who aren't necessarily successful people who may be the barrier to your success. And sometimes these are the hardest individuals to either separate yourself from, or the hardest individuals that to be willing to identify. We'll talk about those as well. All right, so N''T, and we saw this in the chat if you were watching, it's the can'ts. I can't do something, you can't do something. The won't do something, I won't, you won't. You shouldn't, you wouldn't. Oftentimes, these are rooted in our upbringing. It may have been, we were told when we were younger that we can't do something. You're not talented enough. You're not athletic enough. You're not tall enough. You shouldn't do something. Sometimes you shouldn't do something as good. You shouldn't put your hand on a hot stove. We know that. But you shouldn't attempt to do that because you won't be any good at it. stifles you before you even begin. And we hear it enough, or we're told it enough, that when we start to do something, when we even think about it, those words start showing up in the back of our head again. And we start thinking about them. And then we don't move forward. And that has stopped us. Self-doubt can be the biggest barrier to your success, because no one can get you out of that, no matter how much encouragement is provided, if you doubt yourself. When I recently published a book with a friend of mine, it was a big thrill for me. It took me forever to do it because I always had that I can't do it mentality. I can't write, I can't publish, I'm not good enough for it. How many of you have taken on a role or thought about taking on a role and said, I can't, I don't have the skills to do it. I shouldn't try that. I don't want to fail. I know individuals like Carl, who is a great leader, helped encourage people to get beyond that. You can be an area director. You can be a division director. But we have to get beyond the mindset of can't. We have to lose that N apostrophe T. I couldn't do something. You couldn't do it. If we live with these NT situations, we won't be able to move forward. Personally, professionally, in our Toastmasters lives. Think about it. If I asked you to write a success statement, what success meant to you, we heard one earlier that says, success to me is helping others achieve success. If in your mind it's, I can't help others achieve success, you'll never achieve that success statement. If your district leader said, I shouldn't move, I shouldn't run for district office, they wouldn't be in district office. So we need to find ways to break through that N apostrophe T barrier. Anyone want to share a story about how an N apostrophe T kept them from being able to achieve something that they wanted? Let's see what David says. Confidence is an inner game, and to perform well, there's a formula. Performance equals potential minus interference. David, who said that quote? Do we know?
It comes from Timothy Galway's book, The Inner Game of Tennis. And it's how high performance coaches coach people these days. You know, you can't, in one sense, teach confidence. You can only make people believe they have it. And then the formula, though, in terms for them to perform is they can do it. That everyone has the potential to perform well. But it's the interference that stops them. So it's whether it's their parents or their friends or Toastmasters, whoever it is, it's if you just go for it and you learn from that. Whereas if people say, oh, you can't do that, you can't apply for this role, you can't do that, you're never going to do that. So it's always been, that book was written in 1974, and The Inner Game of Tennis, and that was the first book that was written when coaching became a real industry. I mean, before that was sports coaching, but like professional coaching started about 40 odd years ago, and that's where it started.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. I'll have to look that book up.
My pleasure.
So EJ, I don't know if you can unmute. EJ says, I was always coached that can't is a swear word. There's no such thing as can't. Do you believe that, EJ? Do you still follow that philosophy, even though you were coached that way?
Yes, I still believe that. It's been an important lesson throughout life that can't is a swear word, and there's no such thing as can't, there's always can. So yes, it's something that I follow through in life. Thanks, Richard.
Excellent. I'm going to have to use that one. That's the first time I've heard that. I did have that double negative. I thought I must have had been in a math class earlier. Where was it? I can't, shouldn't do something. The double negative making a positive. I think I have a math teacher in the room somewhere. But see, you start to identify what these things are. That these are invisible barriers. They're nothing physical here. And how we find ways to overcome that is the important part. But in order to overcome it, well, first we have to identify it. We have to identify that we're doing that we've been either brought up that way or we've heard it so often.
Right.
Or we got a hold of that can't word, that swear word, and we're swearing at ourselves all the time saying, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't play basketball. I know that. So I play a different sport. I get to be successful at that. Yeah, sometimes people choose to be comfortable with an apostrophe T. I absolutely agree with that. But you have to sometimes also be willing to step into that uncomfortable zone if you want to achieve success. There's the word impossible. Everyone knows the word impossible. But the word impossible is made up with I am possible. And it's how we phrase it, how we see it. All right, let's move on from the N apostrophe T's. Let's talk about a couple of fears. Some of you will recognize these fears. Some of you will not be familiar with the terms. But by definition, fear is an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of danger. That fear of public speaking, that fear of getting up on the stage, that fear of doing table topics. I love the fear of doing table topics. Every time we're in our own meeting, the table topics master gets up, says, who's like to take on a table topic? And we all look at our feet for the most part. Yet we have a guest in our club and we want to build the club. We need one last guest to join. And we ask them to do table topics. They're afraid of coming in the room. And now we've just asked them to do something that we're afraid of doing. Now we've helped engage that fear process. Excuse me. So fears are good things. Daryl, there's always one. Yeah, I think of to myself, pick me, pick me. The teacher's pet in the room, Daryl. But fears are good things to identify and then feel a way to harness them. I mentioned that butterfly feeling, that fear of public speaking, that fear of getting on the stage. There's an odd phenomenon that I'm seeing lately. We've been living this two-dimensional life for several years now, being in these little boxes on our computer screens. Anyone want to know if we're three-dimensional and get together at some point in time? I know I sure do. I was at a location the other day where people have gone back to being in person. And there were probably 10 or 15 at their desks in the room. And no one was speaking to each other. They had been so isolated for so long that they didn't know how now to speak to somebody when they were next to them. And redeveloping those communication skills. I was telling their manager, I said, listen, if you're watching people, you want to make sure they're okay. Just remember if they're doing this next to their desk, they probably had a dog next to them in their office at home and they're just missing it. There's nothing really wrong there. But now it's a fear of being together. When the pandemic struck, we were afraid of being apart. But how do we harness that and identify that? It's why mentoring by our peers is so important. Excellent point, Nola. Excellent point. So let's talk about a few fears that I've identified. Xenophobia is the first one. Now, xenophobia in the common years have come to be the fear of individuals, is what it's more known as. But in its rarest form, its rawest form, xenophobia is the fear of the unknown. That's what it started out as, the fear of the unknown. That is something that is real. We are afraid to try something because we don't know the outcome. We don't know what it's going to take. And because of that, it stifles our ability to move forward. When we're asked to take on a role, sometimes we'll say no because we don't know what's on the other side of it. We don't know what it's going to take. So we'll step back, that deep fear. Carl was in a scuba outfit the other night at the opening ceremonies, the beach party, excuse me. If you're afraid of the unknown of what's in the water, it's going to stifle your ability to want to be a scuba diver or even try it. So fear of the unknown is real. Teachaphobia. Now, teachaphobia is fear of failing. We don't want to try something because we're going to fail at it. You've got the NNT that says I can't do something. And now we're afraid we're going to fail if we even try it. So we're not going to try it now. We don't want to give our speech because we are fearful that we're going to fail at it. We don't try things because we are afraid we're going to fail. I look at failure this way. Failure to me is only failure. Thank you, Graham Dunlop. Thank you. Failure is not always a bad thing. You're right. Because I don't see it as failure if I learn from it. If I continue to do the same thing over and over again, knowing that the outcome is going to be the same, which is by definition insanity, then that's failure. So you need to be able to learn from it. Sky, failure equals feedback. Sky, would you be willing to share a little bit more about that with us?
Hi, thanks, Richard.
Hi, Sky.
Hi, good coach of mine. In fact, two really good coaches of mine who do a lot of work in confidence often say to me that failure is feedback. So it's just some feedback that we need to modify or change something slightly. So it's actually reframes how we view failure and softens the blow. So we're actually learning something. It's an opportunity to learn.
Excellent. And when you think about that, when you've been taught that failure equals feedback, is it feedback from others? Is it providing personal feedback to yourself? How do you view that?
Yeah, good question. It's feedback to oneself. So it's just some feedback that's you need to modify something slightly or change your approach, change the way that you're doing something. So it's feedback to yourself that maybe.
If you have something interesting to say, then great.
Go ahead, Sky.
So yeah, it's feedback to yourself that you just need to slightly change something. So it's kind of like viewing a challenge or an opportunity, however you want to view it, as an experiment.
Excellent. I think that when we look at our speeches and our evaluators, they're providing feedback, not that we've failed, but there are things that we can do better. So that fits into that equation for sure. David, I like this. If at first you don't succeed, then skydiving probably isn't for you. And well, that all depends. Maybe you're trying to see how high you can bounce once you hit a hard surface. Not sure there, but thank you for that little bit of comedy. It's always good to have that. So the fear of failure is something that will prevent us from moving forward. I'm a professionally licensed race car driver here in the States. So for me, if I had that fear of failing, getting in the car and racing it, that would stop me from doing it for sure. and would prevent me from achieving any of the successes that I have at it. But I have people who provide me the feedback. So when I do something wrong, they help me overcome it. All right, this one here is an odd one to me, and it took me time to realize this. Achievementphobia. This is the fear of having success. The fear of, who would have ever thought that you could have a fear of being successful? I've never had a fear of having too much money and achieving that success, or having the big house or the fancy car. But there is a real fear in that, one, if I achieve success, I may not be able to do it again. And then we face the fear of failure. So I'm afraid of becoming successful because I won't be able to accomplish it again. And then have a fear of failure, so I'm not going to try. See how it keeps compounding. The other thing about it, the fear of success, is, will I have to leave others behind if I'm successful? Will I have to start hanging out with a new group of individuals? DTMs, you were successful at becoming a DTM. Please just don't hang out with the other DTMs. Hang out with the rest of the individuals still in the program so that they can come along with you. But do I have to change who I am, who I associate with, what I do, because I become successful? Living up to expectations, self, others, and community. Very good. Nola, the Rolling Stones never had this fear of achievementphobia. I'd like to hear more about that sometime. But do we have that fear of success? If we take on a leadership role, let's say I take on an area directorship and I've achieved distinguished status as an area director. Will I be willing to take on a division director role? Because now I'm not sure if I can replicate that success that I've had at the area director. And because of that, I won't move forward. If you've not failed most of your life, it might feel strange to be successful. Beth, can you explain that a little bit more for us?
So that's just my life. Like, I feel that I've failed a fair bit. So if I eventually become successful, it would feel like strange, but you'd get used to it eventually. But I think I am a bit like afraid of being successful, and that might like hold me back as well, because that means that I don't have confidence in myself to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well thought out. Thank you for that. They say, there's a saying, I can't remember, T.S. Eliot may have said it, if you're not over your head, how tall will you know you are? So sometimes that struggle is real. The struggle as identity. Thank you, Nick. All right, this one we should all be familiar with, glossophobia, the fear of public speaking. How many of you had that fear before you walked into your first Toastmasters meeting and now still have it? I see Peter says no, he didn't. That Peter,
yes, I was actually, I wasn't too bad. I could actually speak, but being a Toastmasters, I can now speak with very large audiences with no problem. So yes, there is fear there, but firstly, no, it's just a matter of, it's just a fear of getting things wrong. But speaking in front, no.
Yeah, it wasn't a fear that was strong enough to keep you from trying to do it and moving forward. And that's great. For me, when I joined, I knew how to speak to people. I think we all often know how to speak to people, but we don't know how to communicate. And there's that vulnerability there that comes from communication and sharing our stories. So where does all this apply, and does one apply to the other? There was a story that I had, personal story, that I was afraid to share for years because it led to a vulnerability. And vulnerability is a really strong fear when you feel that you're vulnerable. Zoom has made us all vulnerable because we're allowing people into our personal space now. Many of us are home and we have our, some of us don't have the virtual background up. So we're letting people in our space, and that's a vulnerability. I'll give you the story that I was just mentioned about. In 2009, I was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer. And I went through the surgeries and the chemo and the radiation. And I would never share that story with individuals. It was personal. And for a long time, I didn't want to realize that it was there. And I may have felt in the back of my mind that if I just didn't talk about it, it probably didn't happen. Even though we have the scars to show that it did, it probably didn't happen. And I decided one day when I was speaking at a district conference that I was going to talk about accepting those things that we need to accept in life. That we have to let go of what we can't control. So I told the story and what I went through, and I shared it with individuals. And that was tough because of the vulnerability there. And I had an individual come up to me later and say, thank you for sharing that, because they were getting ready to go through the same thing. And by sharing that story, I was able to alleviate a little bit of their fear. But you've got to be willing to share it. You've got to be willing to put it out there. And those are some things that we're facing. The vulnerability is a big thing that we're facing right now. I did not have a fear. I just did not know what I needed to know. Icebreaker with 24 ums, memorable apparently. Nola, I would say that's probably not the most number of ums I've heard about in a icebreaker speech. Did you at least make the 1 minute mark? That's the key. So fears are real. So now you go ahead, Nola.
I'm sorry, Richard. I made the 1 minute mark and I've been going overtime for 19 years. So that in itself, and everyone that knows me is smiling and shaking their head saying, yes, that is so true. There you go. You have to wonder what you wish for.
Excellent, excellent. Well, at least you made it to the number and made it to the light. A lot of times we see those individuals that are so afraid that they don't even get to the light. They'll for 24 seconds and then they'll sit down. Thank you for sharing that. So now we've got these N apostrophe T's. We can't, we won't, wouldn't, couldn't, shouldn't. That either we're telling ourselves, someone told us while we're growing up. Now we add the fear on top of it that are keeping us from moving forward. Fear of success, fear of the unknown, fear of failure. And then we add to that the people we associate with. And as I stated earlier, there's that belief that if you want to be successful, surround yourself with successful people. And there was a comment about the mentoring and how important that is. But it's having the right mentor as well. We all, I think, want mentors. But is it the right mentor for us to help us achieve what we want to achieve? Do we know what we want to achieve? So just having a mentor in that position isn't always the end all be all. It's the ability to identify the right mentor for yourself. But I want to talk about two different types of individuals. Now, here's the hard part about this. These individuals may be your friends and they may be your family. Now, they also could be just peers, but peers are easier to disassociate yourself with. Friends and family are a little bit harder. And I'm going to give you a look at these individuals through imagery. And if you know the answers as I ask the question, please put them in chat or shout them out So the first individuals, again, maybe our friends or acquaintances, they may be our family, but these are the ones I want to talk about, the crabs. David has got it. He sees it right there. I saw his motions. That's right. So when we think about crabs, what I want you to think about is a crab bucket. And David, since I saw you out of the corner of my eye, why don't you talk to us about the crabs in the crab bucket?
Well, if you put a crab in a bucket of water, the crab is quite comfortable and relaxed and everything. If you put another crab in the bucket, the first one might try and get away and the other one pulls it back. And the more crabs in the bucket, that's what's happening. So you just can't get out of it. That happens a lot in life.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. Oftentimes I'll give this and people aren't familiar with that crab bucket analogy, but this is true. These are the individuals who are holding you back from being able to achieve something. These are the individuals who may be telling you you can't do something, that you shouldn't do something, you shouldn't try, that you won't be any good at it. Those individuals may be friends. They may be family. And it may be that they have a fear of your being successful, a fear of you achieving something that they weren't able to. But how do you disassociate yourself with a family member, with a friend? So you need to really look long and hard at, are there crabs in your life that are holding you back? Are you trying to get out of that crab bucket, but there's someone got a hold of you by the legs and is holding you back, preventing you from doing something? The Hermetic philosophy. Beth, tell us a little bit about the Hermetic philosophy book.
Okay, so I've only briefly watched it on YouTube. I haven't actually read the book yet, but there's 7 philosophies. So I'll just outline one. So there's spectrum. So there's total opposites like hot and cold, but they're on the same spectrum. Yeah, it's something that I haven't quite got my head around, like all of the differences, like the 7 philosophies. But yeah, that this book was written in the early 1900s, and yeah, it talks about vibration as well. Like yeah, so I just recommend it.
Excellent. I'll have to look it up. Thank you very much for sharing that.
That's okay.
So again, look at those individuals that you're surrounding yourself with. They may be successful, but they may be keeping you from achieving what success you want to have. And then parrots. Now, who would think that a parrot could keep you from achieving success? The one thing we know about parrots is that they mimic us. And they speak back to us exactly what we've said to them. I want to be a successful author. A parrot will say, I've been an author. It's too much work. It's not worth it. Don't bother. I want to be a successful area director. I've been an area director. It's a lot of work. You don't want to do it. A parrot will repeat back to you the negative side of what you want to do and tell you that they've already done it. They may not have done it, but they're going to tell you that they had. When I started learning to ride motorcycle, You would have people that would tell you, oh, I had a motorcycle all my life. Too much uptake, too much traffic, too much this, too much that. You don't want to ride. A true friend, a motorcycle friend, if you have an issue with the bike, maybe you have an accident, they'll come and visit you. The first question they ask you isn't how you are. They ask you how the motorcycle is. You're secondary at that point. That's the friend. That's the encourager in there. So think about those people that you've spoken to, that you've engaged with, who have maybe told you exactly what you wanted to do and say they've already done it. Avoid those people. You don't need that. You don't need people mimicking back to you. You don't need people holding you down and not letting you get out of the bucket. So if you want to power up your possibilities, if you want to ride the wave to success, be the best you can be, you want to drop the N''T's. Get rid of those whenever you can. You want to say, I can, not I can't. I will, not I won't. Should, not I shouldn't. Get used to saying that. When asked if you want to give a speech, say, I can. When asked if you want to get into leadership and you have that doubt in the back of your mind that says, I can't do that, say, I can. What is the worst that could happen? What is the worst that could happen? You achieve success, and then you have to face the fear of Achievementphobia. So lose the N''T's out of your statements. Understand your fears and embrace them. They can help you. They can help you. That fear of public speaking, those butterflies, I have them to this day. And I look at it this way. If I get up on the stage and I have butterflies, it's not because I lack confidence. It's because I have passion for what I'm doing. And the butterflies are there because they remind me to do the best I can do. Get them to fly in formation and take you to that next level. So understand your fears. What's the worst thing that could happen if you achieve success? What's the worst thing that could happen if you're a successful area division director? They're going to call you up on stage and they're going to recognize you for being successful. Embrace it, identify it, use it to your advantage. And avoid the crabs and the parrots. They're not going to help you get to where you want to get to.
Can I just share a 30-second thing with you about the crabs, Richard? Oh. He's gone quiet.
Oh, looks like he's frozen.
I'd say go for the 30 seconds.
Yeah. Can I just tell you 30 seconds about the crabs?
Yes, yes, David.
In 1995, after a lifetime of compulsive gambling, I joined Gamblers Anonymous. I had 10 friends that I used to run with all the time. And in order to get through what I had to get through, I had to leave them as friends. And I told them all I couldn't mix with them anymore. And for the next 10 years, I never associated with them. I never went anywhere with them. I never carried any money, cut up all my credit cards and everything. I'd only ever carry a 20-cent piece in a little purse I had. I'd get a receipt for everything I bought. They didn't like it because for them to, you know, when I changed, if they wanted to be my friends, they'd have to change too, and they didn't want to do that. 10 years later, when I was through it all, I rang each of them and we had dinner.
I'm back. Did all my pixels come back with me?
Yeah, they're still friends of mine, but they've never asked me to do anything I used to do with them before. You've got to get away from them. You can't stick with friends, no matter how well-meaning they are, if you're doing the wrong thing. That was interesting.
Thank
Best
you,
thing I ever
David.
did.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you now, Richard. Sorry, you were frozen there.
Well, you know, the worst thing that can happen to you when you're connected to the hotel internet is you hit that 24-hour period and it doesn't warn you in advance and everything just stops.
That's right.
And I was having a great conversation with myself. So David, thank you for bringing that story up. I did catch the end of it, and you're absolutely correct. You can't hang out with those people who are going to hold you back and stop you from achieving what you want to achieve. When you look at your success, whatever that means to you, don't focus on the barriers that will get you from will prevent you from getting there. Think about what the expected outcome is. And then surround yourself with those individuals who have had that level of success, those individuals that are going to encourage you, not discourage you. The ones that are going to be there to celebrate with you, not to shun you. Those are the people who will take you to where you want to be, or at least push you towards where you want to be. We all occasionally put a barrier there, whether it's from fear, whether it's from self-doubts, whether it's from other individuals telling us that we can't accomplish something. Have faith in yourself. Believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, it doesn't matter how much others are going to believe in you. Your self-doubt is stronger than their will to see you succeed. I have a saying, and some of you may have heard it earlier, that opportunity does not knock. It does not ring the doorbell. Opportunity plays hide and seek. And it's up to you to go out and find those opportunities. Don't let your barriers prevent you from achieving them and finding them. I wish you all the success that is due you. Wish you all the ability to try something new and achieve whatever it is you wish to achieve as you ride the wave to success in District 73. Namrita?
Thank you so much, Richard, for yet again inspiring and encouraging us so much. It has been a pleasure having you here amongst us, amongst our District 73 members. And I loved everything that you shared. I'm sure everyone else have had also a very engaging session. And that's another thing, I really, really enjoyed the engaging part of it. I think it rarely happens these days, especially in a virtual environment. So thank you for bringing that quotient in, because soon enough, we are going to start meeting in person and we really need to start to talk to people in person. So thank you for that. And it has been an honor, Richard, to have you over here amongst us. And thank you for giving us all those tips and tricks. I personally believe and very firmly believe in one of a very special quote that I've always carried through since childhood, I think. And that is about, man or a woman, let's say, can move mountains, which means you can do anything and everything that you wish for or want to. So I think it did resonate through this workshop of yours. So thank you so much, Richard. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Namrita, and thank you to the members of District 73 for hosting me. It was great to be able to see some old friends that I haven't seen for a while and share. So hopefully we'll be able to do this again in person sometime.
Absolutely. And before everyone leaves, if you all want to stay back, we would love to take a moving video Zoom background capture if everyone's up for it. We just want to see how the moving background looks all together when everyone's on the screen. And thank you, Kevin, for creating a very creative Zoom background based on our Ride Our Wave theme for the conference. Okay, so do you all have the file? I'll share it 1 second.
When I tried to upload it, it said that it was too large to upload.
That was the first one. My apologies. I sent the wrong one. Try the one that I've just sent.
Oh, okay.
So basically the waves are designed. Oh, Kevin, do you want to explain how the waves are designed?
No, it's a secret. Effectively, Zoom just uses a normal movie file, an MP4, which means that if you create a presentation or on PowerPoint or Keynote and you do export to movie, then whatever it is that you've created through your PowerPoint or your Keynote or your slides can become your background. So you can effectively create your own movie component that then either reflects the mood or what you're doing, or in this case, a general theme. Marlene, that's very scary.
Look at Marlene.
You're a butterfly.
The things you see on Zoom.
Kevin, I've got a Mac and it's suggesting I can export as a 720p or a 480p. They're the only two options I've been given.
720 is the higher one, so it gets a better quality image, and that's round about the right quality for Zoom.
Okay. Save it to desktop.
This way.
The hope is that you should just be able to go into Zoom and upload, choose video, and then if you've downloaded this the normal way that a download happens in Zoom, it'll be in the downloads folder.
And now how do I put my head on?
Your head will just be there. Marlene's done something a little different with hers.
That's not surprising. She's a surprising girl.
She just doesn't have a. So what you need is a green background. If you don't have that, you'll get that effect. That's why.
Not when you're using it as a background.
It's not working for me.
No, I've failed. Sorry. So I'll get off and show everyone else.
I did a speech once on the strange things you see on Zoom. I wish I would have had Marlene's picture for that. It's definitely one for the books. I wore a green shirt with a black dog on it, and I had a green screen. So all you saw was my head and a black dog walking across the screen.
I've had a lot of people do speeches quite innovatively by using their jumper as the presentation for the slide. So you think everything is going normally, and then all of a sudden, whatever the imagery is comes up, just as Marlene's in there.
Okay, I think, oh, that's perfect. Okay, I think almost all of us do have the wave. So all that we need to do is look at the screen and just smile. I'll probably do some pose because it's going to be we're going to cut the video of this. So are we ready? 1, 2, 3. You keep smiling. It's a wave. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. This is brilliant. And thank you for being such a sport. So we are about to close this session. Thank you again, Richard, for being over here. Our next session for the conference is the humorous speech contest that's going to start at 2:30 p.m. AEST and 2 p.m. ACST. So we will see you then. Have your break, have your lunch, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Namrita. For anyone who would like to stay in contact with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or email me. I'm always available.
No worries, Richard. Wonderful.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Who's got the horse race running? or something running.
Yeah,
That's very distracting. Anyway,
Can you understand it?
I am very much brighter than I look.
Say it backwards.
Marlene, you have to tell us, how did you do this? You have the wave embedded in you.
And you had blue teeth.
And we can't hear you.
I think the eyes have it.
Yes,
That's
they
right.
certainly
Oh
have.
one
my
of them
God,
anyway.
I'm going to stop the recording.
You just don't use a green